Okay, hi Dani. Welcome
Mom.
to Puppy Ponders. This is episode 5 or 6 now.
I think it's
Six? Episode
don't quote
6.
us.
So thank you so much for being here. We're really excited to speak to our own staff member about your experience with your health and with yoga. So welcome.
Yay! Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing to this. So, your story you've shared a little bit with me, and so I'm really excited for you to share it with everyone else. And this is such a prominent reality for so many people that I think this could be really helpful. So let's start off in the beginning with what brought you to yoga, Dani.
Well, the first time I ever did yoga was in undergrad, and it was solely because I had to get like an extra credit. And so I was looking at all the different 1 hour classes that I needed, and yoga just fit perfectly in my schedule. And I had never done it before. I didn't really know anything about it. And so I just showed up on day one like a super newbie, really didn't know anything. And I was hooked. I was like, what is this? This is awesome. I love this. And I've been practicing on and off ever since.
Awesome. Yes. And then Dani did our teacher training program, which is
Yes.
beautiful. So, and is now a teacher.
Exciting.
So I remember during teacher training, you were starting to discover some answers that you've had to your health questions.
Yes.
Can you go in a little bit about that background?
Yeah, so it's been a really long, arduous journey to get to figuring out what was going on with me and in my body. And during teacher training, that was kind of like the peak of everything was breaking down. Nobody knew what was going on. We were running through all these tests, going to all these doctors. But to kind of go back a little bit, when I was in graduate school, I started having all of these crazy symptoms, like numbness and tingling and lightheadedness and just these very bizarre symptoms. And so, I went to the head of my program and he said, well, you're just stressed. And I thought, well, obviously I'm in grad school. I'm very stressed. That's probably it. And then it kind of kept getting worse. And so then I went to the doctor, and the doctor kind of dismissed it and said, well, you're stressed and you're a young woman, so it's probably hormones. Okay. So I was like, okay, well, I guess that's it then, and it'll go away. And it kind of subsided for a while. And then which I think this happens a lot, especially with women, we tried to grow our family, got married and tried to grow our family, and went through a really difficult pregnancy and loss, and then another very difficult pregnancy. And I think the stress on my body and my mental health and well-being kind of caused all of those symptoms to come back, but like tenfold. So, after I gave birth to my daughter, who is now 5, she just turned 5. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. After I gave birth to her, I started, having all those symptoms again, and it was getting worse. But then it was kind of, all the doctors said, well, you're just postpartum, and it's hormones, and it's stress, and it's lack of sleep. And I'm sure that definitely played a huge part in it. But I knew deep down inside that something wasn't right. Like something just wasn't right. So I kind of pushed it to the side a little bit, but it was still in the back of my mind. And so my daughter, I guess I'm trying to think of a timeline here. When she turned a year, we moved back to Tennessee. We lived in Connecticut for a year. When she was a year, her first year of life, we lived in Connecticut. So that's we moved from Tennessee to Connecticut. We moved back to Tennessee right after she turned a year. And then I got really sick when we moved back to Tennessee. And it was just bonkers. We had no idea what was going on. My husband told me I was just stressed. And doctors told me I was stressed, and the other doctors told me it was hormones, and I was just like, something is going on. And it wasn't long after that I started to realize that I needed to get my stress levels like under control and reduce them, because no one was helping me figure out what was wrong with myself. So I had to kind of take it into my own hands. And so I went like full force back into yoga, because I knew how good it was for me physically, mentally, emotionally, all of the things. And I was like, if I can do one thing to like reduce my stress and just try to start to like take control of my health, it's going to be yoga. So I like full force jump back into that. Then once I started to kind of see some benefits in my health after doing like kind of jumping back into yoga, I was like, I got to teach this. I have to teach this. I'm a physical therapist. I am helping people get better every day. And there's this whole other avenue that we're not tapped into. Most PTs aren't tapped into, you know, when it comes into the yoga world. And so I started to think, how can I teach this? How can I weave this into my physical therapy practice? How can I maybe teach this outside of physical therapy? Because it is so, so, so beneficial. So then I started looking around for programs, teacher training programs, and I stumbled onto you guys. I'd never been to your studio before, because I live, you know, way, way across town, on the other side of town. And I don't know what it was. It was like, I just saw it and something inside of me was like, that's it. That's what you got to do. So, okay, moving forward in the story. So now I'm going to teacher training, and I'm still going to doctors, still trying to figure out what's wrong. And I finally got a hold of a general practitioner who, whether or not this had anything to do with it, I'm not sure, but it was the first female physician that I had gone to. And she was like, I believe you. I think something's going wrong. Like, so I think something's going on. So we're going to do all of these tests. We're going to figure it out. So went through all of these tests and all of this blood work. And she ran a couple of specific tests that I can't remember what they were now. But they came back abnormal. And she was like, we did it. We did it. Like, we figured out that there's something going on. We don't know exactly what it is yet, but something's going on. So I'm going to send you to a rheumatologist, because I think it has something to do, you know, with an autoimmune issue. So then I got shipped off to a rheumatologist, and I went to the rheumatologist, and it still took a little while for her to figure out what was going on. She told me they even had a meeting about me with all of the physicians in the group to try to figure it out, because I have lupus, but I don't really fit the typical lupus picture, I guess. So anyways, during teacher training, I was still going through all of that. At one point, they thought I had Lyme disease because I had lived in Connecticut for a year. And that is, you know, big tick area. That's where Lyme disease came from. I had gotten bitten by a tick hiking up there. And so they thought, you have Lyme disease. So then one doctor tested me and said, you're positive for Lyme disease. Then I went to a Lyme disease specialist, and he said, no, you're not. You don't have Lyme disease. It was kind of like, it was just this ping-ponging back and forth. It was very frustrating. There were many times along the journey where I thought, am I crazy? Like, is this all in my head? Am I just stressed? Is this normal? Is this how everybody feels? But for whatever reason, something inside of me just kept pushing me forward and like pushed me to be my own advocate. And I'm so glad I did, because on average, it takes somebody 10 years to get diagnosed with lupus. 10 years. And that is insane, that your body has to go through all of that, you know, hurt and harm for so long before they can figure out what's going on. And so I feel really lucky, that I actually got diagnosed as quickly as I did. So, and that happened during teacher training. So it was just a crazy roller coaster of emotions trying to figure out what was going on with me. But the whole time I kept thinking, I'm just going to keep going with yoga. I'm just going to keep chugging through with yoga, because throughout it all, that has helped me more than anything else.
Wow. That's
long answer.
That's so interesting. So like my first question when you were talking was like, you said 10 years, but I was thinking when you would start talking about grad school, what the timeline between your diagnosis was.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you look at it from that point of view, it was quite a while because I graduated with my doctor in 2012. Um, so haven't been out quite 10 years yet, right? I'm like, what year is it? Let's just look at this. This year has just been a dumpster fire. But yeah, I mean, it did, truly, I started to develop symptoms quite a while ago, but once I really started to actually like go to the doctor and put my foot down and say, something's wrong, we got to figure it out. That really was when Larson turned a year.
Okay.
And so I mean, really, I guess technically it was quite a while, but really when I started fighting for it, it really wasn't all that long before they kind of figured it out. Probably a year and a half, maybe.
Okay.
About ish, which is pretty good compared to a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I find it so interesting that like along the whole timeline, everyone was dismissing you, including your husband, who is a
Oh yeah.
medical.
Oh yes.
Not to highlight that. Let's not highlight that him. But like you were.
He's heard about it many times. Where I'm like, remember when you just told me I was stressed and I had lupus?
But I feel like that's like what happens, and then you're saying you're doubting yourself because you have no reference point of what it's like to live in another body. So you're like, am I just a woman who's hormonal and stressed? I don't know, because I don't know what it's like to live in like Jessica's body. I don't have a reference point of what's normal, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That makes
It was wild, and it gave me much more empathy as a healthcare provider when it came to dealing with patients who came to me and they kept saying something's wrong and I couldn't figure out what it was. When I first started out practicing, it was like, well, it's you're probably just anxious and you're stressed out and it's in your head, because that's the message that we've been told our whole life, especially when it comes to women. And I mean, I don't even want to admit it, but I was dismissive of a lot of my patients. And after I went through this, I became so much more empathetic to other people's journeys and what they were going through, and really taking to heart when someone came to me like, no, look, something's really not right. I really started to take them seriously. So I think it definitely helped me as a human being to become more empathetic to others, because it was very dehumanizing to have healthcare professionals continually tell you that it was in your head and you're just a woman, you're hormonal, you're stressed out, you're anxious, you're a mom. Like, it's just, it was rough. It was rough, but it did give me a lot more empathy, and I'm very grateful for that. Definitely. Because I mean, I was one of the healthcare professionals that if I couldn't see it, if I didn't know what it was, it almost seemed like it couldn't be real to me. And I think that's how a lot of, I don't want to speak for all healthcare professionals, but I think that's how a lot of healthcare professionals are. If it doesn't fit in this tiny box and it's not something that you can immediately see and understand, it's hard. It's just hard to kind of walk down that road with a patient. Did that make any sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to me, when I hear your story, I think like I'm like, okay, well, Dani had all the resources. You're highly educated. You had this inquisitive mind. No, this is not how it should be. You have the resources. And I think about the people that don't. And like getting ping-ponged between doctors and not being able to ask the right questions and not being able to put their foot down. And so I just, hearing your story makes me also think of like all those people, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that's one of the reasons why I was able to get a diagnosis quicker, was because I am privileged enough to have a higher education and in the medical field specifically. And I am privileged. I have access to healthcare providers that a lot of people don't. I have access to the finances to be able to do those things, to go down those avenues, to go to all these different doctor's appointments, to have all these different tests done. And that's definitely not lost on me And I think, I mean, this can kind of get into a whole different conversation. But, lupus affects women of color more than any other population. And when it comes to healthcare, women of color definitely have less access to all the healthcare avenues that I was privileged to have access to. And I think that definitely plays a part into kind of that delayed diagnoses, especially in lupus, is because of the population that it mainly affects. And so I have thought about that many times, about how, I mean, I'm not lucky to have lupus, but I'm definitely lucky that I had the access to the healthcare system that I did.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And that's an interesting part of lupus I didn't know. So which kind of brings me to like, can you tell us more about just autoimmune disorders in general? Because I know that, what is this on what test am I thinking about that you love? The
Enneagram.
Enneagram. This is your Enneagram, right? The researcher.
Yes, I am. If you're about the Enneagram, I am a 5. I am a 5 through and through, which means that I just want to know all the things about all the things, and I will research something like into the ground, and then I'll find 5 other things that I need to research, and then I just like go off on all these little like tangents. But it, and that was another thing is, a part of my personality is I just needed to know what was going on in my body. I needed to know what was happening, why it was happening, what I could do to change things. And I think that also helped. And autoimmune disorders, there are a lot of different autoimmune disorders, but basically if you have an autoimmune disorder, it's where your immune system is malfunctioning in some sort of way. And so with most of them, your immune system actually turns itself around and will start attacking your own body, as opposed to attacking the foreign substances that come in, like viruses or bacteria or whatever it is. When you get sick, your immune system kind of ramps up and then fights all the bad stuff. And then for whatever reason, when someone develops an autoimmune disorder, their immune system can ramp up, but against their own body. And so like with like rheumatoid arthritis, the immune system mainly attacks like the joints, so the tissues in the joints, other things as well. But with lupus, your immune system attacks there's a couple different kinds of lupus too. So your immune system could attack your skin, it could attack your nerves, your heart, your kidneys, that's a big one, your brain, your lungs, all those really important things that you need to live. It's great. So, but the problem is, with something like with lupus, your immune system is overactive, but it's overactive in the wrong place. So what happens is you're more susceptible to getting sick because your immune system is fighting your body as opposed to fighting the pathogens that come into your body. So your immune system is attacking your body, you're more susceptible to getting sick, and then when you get sick, because your immune system is kind of faulty, it has a harder time fighting off whatever it is that you have or you get. And so you're more likely to have, a more serious case of whatever it is that you get. So like if you get the flu, like you're more likely to get the flu. And then once you get the flu, you're more likely to have a more severe case of the flu because your immune system is just wackadoodle. And, the other thing is a lot of people with autoimmune disorders, because their immune system is kind of on overdrive, but fighting your own body, you have to take medications that basically tamper down your immune system. So sometimes it kind of kills your immune system a little bit, or it just subdues it. And unfortunately, that also increases the likelihood that you can get sick. And then once you get sick, it can be a more severe version of whatever that sickness is. So it's this ongoing battle of trying to, prevent your immune system from destroying your own body, but at the same time not reducing it so much that you can't fight off, you know, all the other stuff outside of your body. I mean, it's kind of a wild ride, but there are a lot of different autoimmune disorders, and they all kind of have their own little special niche thing that they do, or they attack, or, you know, it focuses on. And I don't know, if you're really, if you want an interesting read, just start researching about autoimmune disorders. It'll take you down all kinds of different rabbit holes.
So why do you think, I mean, is there a reason why women are more prone? So, you know, the statistic I pulled was 10 million Americans, 75% being female.
Yeah. You know, it's been really interesting to read studies on, you know, the scientists and the doctors trying to figure out why people get autoimmune disorders, because if you could figure out what triggered it, then potentially you could prevent it, or kind of go back and kind of quote unquote fix it. There's a bunch of different theories out there of why certain people get autoimmune disorders and why others don't. You know, I think after reading everything that I've read, my personal opinion is that it's a combination of genetics. So I think some people are more prone to developing autoimmune disorders, or more susceptible to them. So a combination of genetics and then environmental stressors. And that can be everything from just the stress of work, the foods that you eat, the chemicals that you're exposed to. I'm trying to think of anything else right now. Getting sick. So, you know, anytime you get a virus, or you get sick, that's a stressor on your body. And it's actually been shown that a lot of autoimmune issues are triggered by a virus. So you get sick, and then that kind of, you know, for whatever reason, that sets off your immune system, and then it just kind of, you know, again goes bonkers, and then just can't ever calm itself back down. I think women, if I were a betting woman, I would say that women are more prone to autoimmune disorders because we have more hormonal fluctuations than men do. Not that men don't. Men definitely have hormonal fluctuations that they go through, but ours tend to be more dramatic. And the majority of women who get diagnosed with autoimmune disorders are in the childbearing years. And so there's theories behind, you know, especially if someone experiences pregnancy, that hormonal fluctuation is astronomical. And just the stress of that on top of carrying a pregnancy, you know, postpartum and all that can really set it off. But even if you don't carry a pregnancy, still your hormonal fluctuations are greater than men. So there's a lot of theories, but I tend to think that it's a combination of genetics and environmental stresses. And I think women are probably just more prone to it because we have greater hormonal fluctuations, unfortunately. Great to be a woman.
Yes, my grandmother always said in my next life I'll be a man.
Yeah. Oh man.
So I'm wondering, like, I know you've had to make some lifestyle changes, and I know you've talked to me a little bit about your diet. Are there any things that you could recommend? And I'm going to ask a weird question, but have you ever tried to talk to your body? Like, be like, Dani, don't do this to you. I don't know. Like, have you ever, has anyone ever coached you into being like, don't attack me?
Yeah. So I don't think that's a weird question at all. And because going back to the Enneagram, I'm a 5, which means that I'm not in touch with my body, at all. I am in my head 99.9% of the time. I live in my brain. It is my safe space. I love it there, and I don't want to go anywhere else. And
but when you had something though.
Oh yeah. I knew something was going on, but I didn't like to think about. If I had pain somewhere.
Okay.
I didn't want to address it. I was like, yeah, that hurts, but let me think about 20 other things. So when I got really sick, I had never had anxiety before in my life, ever. I've never experienced it. I had no idea what it was. And I had a panic attack one day. Thought I was dying. I'd never had one before. Didn't know what was happening. And for whatever reason, all of these changes in my body just like set off massive amounts of anxiety. So I started practicing mindfulness, but in particular, body mindfulness. So I would do body scans like multiple times a day, and it helped so much because I'm so out of touch with my body just like on a day-to-day basis, that it helped me actually figure out kind of what was happening in my body, where it was happening, and it kind of helped me deal with it and not just ignore it or get mad at it. Like, does that kind of make sense? Like, I just kept getting, like, I don't know how to explain it. I knew something was going on, but I didn't want to really acknowledge what was happening in my body because I felt so out of control with it or about it. And the body scans helped me like kind of come to grips that I didn't have control over it. And it helped me not be mad at my body anymore, which in turn then helped actually lower my stress levels, and it lowered all of my symptoms. If I'm really consistent with my mindfulness practice, my symptoms are much less. My pain is less, my fatigue is less, my nerve issues are less, like my lightheaded dizziness is reduced. And I truly think it's just because I'm actually like honoring my body, listening to it. I'm not getting mad at it. I'm not like, why are you not working? Why are you attacking me? Like, it's definitely a daily practice, but I'm trying very hard to learn to love my body and trust my body. And mindfulness definitely helped with that. I don't know if that answered your question at all. I feel like I just like went in circles.
Really, it did. And that's obviously great to share that it's like mindfulness being yoga had such drastic effects on how you feel and how your nerves feel. But I just, one time read a book about like people with cancer or people with AIDS, like having like a personal meditation where they're like, I forgive you for having cancer, or like, I forgive my cancer or something, and having like effects from that. And I was just wondering if you've ever done anything.
Yeah. Yes. There have been many times where I have prayer time every day. And a part of that is like coming into myself, being like, I got you. It's okay. I love you. I'm going to take care of you. It's okay if you're going a little crazy right now. It's fine. I'm not mad at you. We're going to get through this together. And like, I feel so silly, like talking to my body, but I really do that. I don't do it every day. I should probably do it every day. But I feel like on days when I'm, having my prayer time and I feel like I'm getting distracted, it's usually because I need to like talk to my body. Does that make any sense?
Oh, it does. It does.
Yeah. I mean, I've never like asked it to get better. I've never been like, hey body, what's up? Like, why can't you just get better? Like, get better. Act right. Get it together. But learning to trust my body has been quite an adventure. It's tough. It's hard if anybody is dealing with a chronic pain, chronic illness, autoimmune issues, you feel like your body is betraying you. And it can be very difficult to like, to not get in that headspace because you can spiral really quickly. And that's not a healthy place to be. Like your body knows what your thoughts are. So if you're mad and you're, angry at your body or disappointed in your body or whatever it may be, like your body knows what you're thinking. And so just being able to kind of not push it away, be like, okay, I'm mad, but then trying to kind of move through that. And I don't know. It's a process. It's a struggle, but it has helped me a lot. Definitely.
No, I think that's beautiful. And I love how you call it your prayer time with your body talk too. No, I think that's beautiful. And, I hope anybody listening that has similar issues might adopt that into their own practice.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, it's definitely, it's a strange thing. Especially for someone, like, if you're not connected to your body, it feels very silly to talk to yourself that way, to talk to your body that way. But it really does help kind of just calm everything down. And with autoimmune disorders, the calmer you are and the lower your stress levels are, the better you will be. And so, I mean, just anything you can do to kind of lower those, but it's a process, but it is worth it. And it's important, I mean, we only get one body, and even if it's a little, we just say wackadoodle a lot at this house because I have a 5-year-old, but even if it's a little wackadoodle, or it might not be how you want it to be, it still is your body, and it's up to you to honor it and love it no matter what's going on in it. And that's really hard, but it is important, I think, at least.
Yeah, no, I think even if you do not currently have any chronic pain or whatever, I think it's the same thing. It's like, it's a daily journey, and it's a daily like gratitude for what you've been given.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to know that you can be grieving and still be grateful. And that was hard for me to get a hold of, because I would be like, I don't want to be grateful for anything because I'm just so mad, or I'm so upset, or I'm scared or anxious about what could happen or what is happening and the unknowns. And it took me a while to say I can be both. Like, I can grieve the loss of what I wanted, or the loss of what I thought was normal, or I can grieve the pain that I'm going through, or whatever it is, and still be grateful that I have a body, still be grateful of the things that are going well with my body, So I think that's important to know, that you don't have to just be grateful all the time and just ignore the grief or the sadness or the anger or the, whatever it is that you're going through, but you can be both.
No, I think that's really insightful. Do you have any other recommendations or insights that you've learned throughout your journey that you could share with people, in similar situations?
Yeah, well, I know you did ask me about my diet. I did make changes to my diet. Then we got off on a whole nother tangent, but I feel like I was kind of surprised when something kind of started going wrong, quote unquote, going wrong in my body, because I've always been a very healthy person. I've always been active and watched what I ate. And, I didn't really think my stress levels were crazy. I mean, I was stressed in grad school, and I was stressed being getting married and getting a job and having a kid, but they never felt overwhelming to me. And so I was kind of surprised when I got sick. So I was like, I'm healthy. What's happening? But I really started to learn a lot about the environmental stressors that I'd never thought about before. Like the chemicals in your cleaning products, and the chemicals in the stuff that you put on your face and in your hair, and the deodorant and the perfumes and all the things, and the food that we put into our body, and how, the chemicals that are on our food, and how, the animals that you may or may not eat, what they are treated with and what they are fed, and how that in turn actually affects you. And I'd never really thought about that before. So I definitely started to make huge changes in my diet. I was a carb-aholic. I mean, I could not go a few hours without carbs. And I still ate very healthy carbs, but I lived and breathed for carbohydrates. And my rheumatologist was actually the first one to suggest that I try a keto diet, because it has been proven to significantly reduce inflammation levels in a lot of people, not everybody. I don't want to put a blanket statement that everyone has to do this, because it doesn't work for everybody. Mm-hmm. But for the majority of people, the keto diet reduces inflammation levels significantly. And so she suggested that I try it, and I was like, well, I love fat and meat and vegetables, so that sounds great. Not really thinking that I wasn't going to be able to eat like any carbohydrates. I was just thinking about all the good stuff that I was going to be able to eat. So it was tough to change my diet, and I'm not perfect with it. I allow myself to cycle in and out of it. And part of that is just for my mental well-being, because some people can live without sugar, carbs, all of the things forever, and it never bothers them. And for some people, it can be really, really difficult to wrap their mind around like never eating that again. And I'm one of those people. And so it is easier for me to know that I can kind of cycle in and out of it. And that allows me to stay in the keto diet for longer periods of time, knowing that I can kind of like come in and out of it whenever I want to, like special occasions, like Christmas time, you know, and you have all those like family traditions and meals and things. And you want to be able to enjoy those as much as you can. And so I, you know, allow myself to come in and out of it. But the other thing, so changing to keto diet was a huge, huge, huge for me. That solved so many of my issues, took away so many of my symptoms. And the other thing was going gluten-free, because they thought I had celiac for a while because my grandmother has celiac, and they thought I had celiac. So I went off of gluten. It helped a lot. And then they did the test saying that I had to, not knowing that I had to go back on gluten for so long before doing the test. And the test came back negative. And the doctor said, well, you know, it's negative, but you have a lot of inflammation in there and I'm not really sure what it's from. So just act like you do have celiac and don't eat gluten anymore. I was like, okay. So I cut gluten out of my diet. That helped reduce a lot of my inflammation. I mean, I literally had swelling in my face, in my ankles, in my hands. And when I cut gluten out of my diet, all of that went away. So cut gluten out, changed to a keto diet, but I cycle in and out of it. Water intake was big. I don't think of anything else diet wise. I don't drink sodas. I was never a big like juice drinker, milk drinker, soda drinker, or anything like that. But if I had been, I would have had to cut those out. But I didn't drink those. I do drink a lot of coffee though. And they recommended at one point that I cut out coffee. And I was like, I don't want to live that life. I don't want to live that life. I need my coffee. I need my coffee.
I know that's hard. I just remember one of my gurus was like, taste is the hardest when I lived in an ashram and ate only rice. And I was like, I can't do this. Like I could do everything else, but I can't do just this. And she's like, taste is the hardest, Jess.
It's because it's such an experience, and like food holds so many emotional things with it. You know, we are emotionally tied to our food, whether it just be comfort or joy, or, you know, we eat or drink something because we're sad, or it holds memories. Like it's so emotional. I feel like diet was the hardest thing for me to make changes in, just because it's so hard. It's such an emotional thing, food, you know? But yeah, I'm not giving up coffee. Not giving up my coffee. I did give up my creamer. I gave up my creamer because it was just chock full of chemicals, and now I drink buttered coffee. So, I mean, I put butter in my coffee. It's pretty delicious.
Yeah, Theodore loves it.
Theodore does love my coffee, yes. Oh,
I think that one's my favorite.
You know, advice for like outside of diet. You know, sleep is huge. And I was a terrible sleeper. I just always assumed, I just always thought, well, I don't sleep very well. That's who I am. But, you know, after talking with my physician and doing a lot of research, you know, not only the amount of sleep you get, but the quality of sleep you get makes a huge difference in your body's ability to be able to heal itself and take care of itself, because all of the repair systems and the healing systems that happen in your body happen while you're sleeping. So if you're not getting good quality sleep, you're not really getting the full effect of your body being able to repair itself. and that's still hard for me. I still have to, like, my sleep hygiene, you know, that's like it's like the buzzword now, sleep hygiene. But I had to really work on that because I was really bad about looking at my phone, waking up in the middle of the night, scrolling through my phone for just a second. And, you know, I had to stop that. I started wearing blue light glasses to help kind of like take all that out. It makes a difference. It really does help me sleep better. I can tell if I don't wear I wear glasses anyways, but if I don't wear my blue light glasses, especially at nighttime, like in the evening before I go to bed, if I'm looking at my phone or my computer, it's harder for me to fall asleep and I don't sleep as well.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll Google those today.
Just little thing. I mean, you can get blue light glasses off of Amazon for like $10.
Really? Okay.
But yeah, just
that's our takeaway.
Yeah, yes. Everyone needs blue light glasses. It's also helped. This is not autoimmune disorder related, but I have astigmatism, and it gets worse when I'm looking at a computer for a long period of time. And if I wear my blue light glasses, if I wear these, it's not as bad. Like, I can focus for longer periods of time and my eyes don't get as tired. I don't get headaches and such, but that's our takeaway today. Get your blue light glasses.
Me.
Oh,
okay. Well, yeah. I know I've been asking you a lot of questions, so let me open it up. If anyone has, cancel, not mute all, unmute all. Except I will mute myself. Does anyone have any questions for Dani?
Dani, I've got a question.
Yeah.
You had mentioned, or at least initially the question was, or the link was between yoga and your lupus. So how has yoga helped your lupus, and how, if you will? Can you connect the two? Let me put it that way.
Yeah. So, you know, with me specifically with lupus, I have extreme fatigue. I have joint pain, muscle pain, nerve pain, of all the pains. You know, I have really, really bad brain fog. And those are just the symptoms I have now. Like, all the other ones have kind of dissipated away, but those are the ones that I have right now. And yoga significantly reduces my pain levels. And it helps kind of reduce my stress. And I think that also helps with my fatigue. So I found that if I'm really consistent in my yoga practice, my pain levels are much decreased, my fatigue levels are improved, and my brain fog is actually better. And I'm not really sure if that's just yoga is actually helping reduce my inflammation, and that's what's kind of leading to the reduced fatigue and the reduced joint pain and then the reduced brain fog. But it helps with all of the things. It helps with all of the things. And, you know, it's usually the last thing that I want to do when I'm hurting and I'm tired. I just don't feel good. But it makes me feel better than anything else. And I like to work out. I like to lift weights and go running and all of that stuff. But yoga is the one thing that improves my symptoms immediately and kind of like over the long term. So I found that when I was getting really sick, when my daughter was very young, I really started to practice yoga twice a day. And not like vinyasa style hardcore like power yoga. I mean, this was like just breathing, slow moving, like just being very aware of moving my body with my breath and just kind of moving through space. I mean, it wasn't power yoga by any means. And I saw almost immediate improvement in a lot of my symptoms. And when I was consistent with it, you know, it drastically improved my fatigue and my joint pain, which was huge because my daughter was very young and I got to the point where I couldn't even carry her up and down the stairs.
Oh, man.
And that was like, I mean, you know, you can't carry your kid up and down the stairs and you're just like, you know, a puddle of tears on the floor. And so when I realized that can, because it was the only thing that I was doing at the time, because the doctors we hadn't figured out what was going on yet. So I wasn't on any medication. I hadn't changed my diet yet. I hadn't done anything but consistent yoga. And, you know, seeing the improvements in my symptoms from that, just like, it hooked me. I was like, I'm in it. I'm a lifer. I'm a lifer. But it is, you know, it is tough to be consistent with it, you know, and it's one of those things, you know, when you feel least like doing it, it's probably when you need it the most. You know, even if it's, and I consider just breath work, just like sitting down or lying down doing breath work. Like I consider that like a yoga practice, you know, I mean, just like bringing yourself into your body and paying attention and working on your breath, which slowing your breath down, right, reduces your inflammation levels just right there. So did that answer your question at all?
No, it does. It does a great deal. Because I wonder, I mean, you know, you're speaking about lupus or autoimmune, but, you know, some of us older guys, you know, with type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure and high cholesterol, and, you know, I go down the list. You know, I'm part of the reason why Ellen and I joined is because we're getting up there and we're trying to reduce some of the physical, you know, the body's falling apart and I got to kind of maintain it as best I can.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what you described, I mean, I felt better flexibility and feeling better physically, but it's still got a long ways to go.
Yeah. And I think, you know, any chronic, anything that's going on, you know, whether it be autoimmune or not, you know, that consistent movement and breath work is going to reduce inflammation levels in your body, which is going to help any chronic issue that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, anything that, so, I mean, if you can reduce the inflammation levels in your body is going to be able to better handle all of the other things that are going on, whether that be higher cholesterol, diabetes, high blood pressure, you know, whatever it may be. And breath work helps reduce your blood pressure anyway. So there you go. That's a positive. And I think too, being someone who's not very in tune with her body, yoga has also helped me pay closer attention to my body, so I can actually tell when things are good and when they're not good. And like, it's helped me be more aware of like, I eat this and I don't feel good. Whereas before I wouldn't really like pay attention as much, you know, and I'd just be like, oh, well, it is what it is. And you move on with your day. And I think one of the great things about yoga is it just, even though you're not like consciously working on being more present and aware, you're becoming more present and aware just by practicing, which I think is important.
Yay.
Thank you, Michael. Laura, do you have any questions as someone in teacher training for Dani?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. No, I gotta tell you, hello, so good to see you. This was really cool because Jesse, my fiance, has an autoimmune disorder, and I'm like sitting here going, oh, he should be here next to me listening to all of this.
It's recorded, Laura.
What?
This is recorded.
Oh, that's fine. He could. I'm gonna make him watch this. Like the sleep, the eating, the mindfulness breath. It's just like all of it. I'm just like been sitting here going, yes, 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 yes. Like it's just so important. And I think for me, it's like, it's really hard because I know all that, but like if he's tired and I'm like, I know doing yoga with me will help you, but he's like, but I'm tired. And I like struggle with being that supportive person of like pushing him to do it when he just wants to sleep. But I know that the sleep's not helping him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, that saying, a body in motion stays in motion.
Yeah.
Is very, very true. And I will say, when I really have a lot of fatigue, like there are some days, and there are some days where you just can't, and you're like, okay, I'm honoring my body and I'm just going to have a rest day. But the problem is when you make that a chronic thing, when you're
Yes.
like, I'm going to keep resting and not moving. And then you kind of start to like spiral down into this, well, your body's used to not moving. And, you know, then your inflammation levels actually start to go back up and everything kind of gets worse and you get even more tired. But it's tough. It's really hard. And I've had to reach out, and I am not someone to reach out to other people and ask for help or support, but I have like reached out to some to keep me accountable to keep moving. You know, it's easy to coach other people through movement. It's hard to make yourself do it.
Yeah.
So kind of having those support people around you that are like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm glad that you're resting and that you've had some rest, but it would also be beneficial to do, I mean, you know, some restorative yoga, some breath work. I mean, just any sort of like really small movement, because that kind of, it allows your body to be like, oh yeah, I can move. Oh yeah, I like to move. Oh yeah, this is good for me. And then it just kind of like builds on itself, you know?
It does. I feel that way with my knee all the time, that I can say that, like, when my knee starts hurting, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to rest it. And then, oh, I don't want to because it'll hurt my knee. And I need to, and I know that. So just jumping on this has been such a good reminder and like a pep. And now I'm like, okay, now I want to get on and watch your archive of your weightlifting. Like, just, you know, it's so encouraging. So.
Well, and okay, so another thing, so I could talk about this like forever, but you know, with autoimmune or with any chronic thing, people just tell you reduce your stress levels, and that's not helpful at all. Because you're like, how do I do that? Like, how am I supposed to just like reduce my stress? Like, get rid of stress? Like, we all have stress. You can't like totally negate all the stress in your life. But doing these things like diet, sleep, mindfulness, you know, gentle movement, you know, I mean, well, more aggressive movement if you want to, but like gentle movement, breath work, like all of those things reduce your stress levels. Because when someone just looks at you and they're like, well, just reduce your stress. And you're like, how do I do that? I don't, you can't, what does that even mean? You know, we all have stress. We're all going to have stress. We're going to have stressful moments and days and periods of time. We can't get around that. But doing those like very specific things definitely help. And talking about weightlifting, another thing that's very important to know is that the more muscle mass that you have on your body, the less inflammation that you have, the lower all of your chronic issues, that's not the right way to say it, but the more muscle mass you have on your body, the better your body is able to function. So it's better able to regulate blood sugar levels. It's better able to sleep and wake and move. And it's so beneficial to have muscle mass, since you're talking about weightlifting. So I really try to keep up with that. I think it's really important. Whether autoimmune or not, but especially if you have autoimmune or any sort of chronic issues going on, muscle mass is like one of your best friends.
Yeah, that's something I didn't know.
Oh, my dad's calling. Sorry, guys.
Well, no worries. I guess, you know, it is, it's been an hour talking to you, so I guess we'll wrap it up. And this has been so insightful. I really enjoyed it, Dani. So thank you for, you know, having the courage to share your story with us.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dani. This was wonderful. It was a great way to spend my afternoon. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you, Dani.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Dani.